Oh no, someone's using the call. Please, someone help me. I'm quivering in my boots. Yeah, I have no idea what that introduction was, but you know what? We'll just ignore it. Let's just go on, man. Anyway, welcome back, everybody. Today, we actually do have a nice little minor-ish update here. It's 12.18, the Steel Championship. It's actually not out quite yet. I just looked on Crossout. Doesn't look like it's on yet because I didn't see the Steel Championship yet, but it's what you can expect in the future here. It's a couple of things previously mentioned, and a couple of balancing changes here that actually may be pretty impactful here. It's quite a few things, but let's go ahead here. Steel Championship, pretty much going to be the same thing as always. However, they do notice that there actually is going to be a Tusk cabin here now, so that actually will be kind of interesting to see how that'll actually change the overall dynamic here. If they're still going to keep the Spike and the Harpoon, as well as the ye old boosters, or if they're actually just going to go straight Tusker cabin. It could work. The only issue with the Tusker cabin is that it's not terribly agile, so I'm not curious how something like that's actually going to work, but I guess we'll see here soon enough. Another thing is here, we got the ye old Sinto City mapped. Now, this is just going to be the same thing as always. It's going to be appearing on Thursday. We kind of discussed that in the last update here. It's supposed to be that multi-level map with 2 capture points here. I doubt anything's been changed here, so it'll be go ahead, stay the same as always. But they also have introduced here some slight changes to that of foliage here. So now vegetation, like trees, bushes, whatever, now will, instead of obscuring your camera, will actually become translucent here, which is actually really helpful here. Anyone trying to play sneaky, anyone trying to hide in bushes, anyone trying to peek around corners where there's a bush at, it was a pain to do so because you couldn't see jack shenanigans outwards. So I imagine this will be incredibly helpful, especially for anyone who's trying to be like a sneaky sniper. Now, balancing changes here. This actually has quite a few interesting changes here. So Spitfire here, nothing notable, just a 10% reduction in durability due to overperformance. Okay, that's fine. I mean, to be fair though, shotguns are still going to be the master strippers for any sort of weapon category here. Now, they also had a change here to the cannons of the Judge and the Prosecutor here. Both changes are pretty much the exact same thing, in which the gunshot damage, which is the actual damage from the projectile itself, is planned to be increased by 10% on the Judge and 14% on the Prosecutor. And this is mainly because the engine perks, the one that actually involves reloading, something like the Colossus or whatever, since that actually is no longer the case, you're going to need something to kind of adjust that. Now they have to actually throw in a completely separate module for it. So the actual reload of these cannons will, in effect, actually be pretty low. But the thing is, too, there was a lot of other weapons that actually relied on the module reload and the weapon reload. I mean, what does that mean for, like, unguided rockets, guided rockets? What does that mean for any weapon that needs to reload? What about junk bows or Fafnirs or anything like that? There's a lot more weapons that reload, so I'm kind of curious as to why only cannons got the big old change here, but I wonder if that's only because it's not only just because of the features involving the engines being changed, but also their effectiveness here. Because, of course, cannons are going to be still the most absolutely effective. Another interesting thing, too, is only 2 cannons. They didn't really change any other cannons here. Like, they didn't change the Avenger, they didn't change the Little Boy, they didn't change the Fat Man, they didn't change the Mammoth or the Mastodon here. So I'm kind of curious as to why it's only these 2 as well. But, alright. Anything helps. Next, the Tempura, which if you don't know, it's essentially like the little blowtorch thing that can do pretty well at actually like stripping off frames and all that. And the reload speed is planned to be increased by 20%, so you can effectively just launch it more often, which is pretty good. To be fair, Tempura is still an incredibly niche weapon. Even for someone who plays around and Crossout quite a bit when Syndicate was out, I still didn't actually see this thing out really that often. Very few people actually have messed around with it. And to be fair, it's a very niche playstyle here. A majority of people who actually even use this thing kind of have to use it in the sense of a person who is ramming and then immediately activates underneath somebody to try to deframe it. That's pretty much the only way this thing can work, so yeah, congratulations for like the whole 5 Tempura players out there. You got your buff. Now, tactically here, this thing got freaking nerfed when it comes to sniping battles here. Minimum spread in motion increased by 50%. And spread increase is planned to be higher by 33% here. Oh my god! It's strange that Tackler, like, they keep noting it's like, oh, it's an extremely effective weapon in medium PS and clan battles here. We gotta make it equivalent to everything else. Which is strange because I feel like the majority of people are not using Tacklers because they're good. I feel like they're just using it because it's cheap. I feel like the majority of people are still going to be using the M protectors and whatever the legendary version of that gun comes out next. Because you have to remember too, the perk for the tackler is kind of useless in clan battles or in any situation, primarily because its perk only activates after you haven't been firing for a couple of seconds here. And if you're a machine gunner in clan battles here, you gotta be shooting pretty much 100% of the game, because not only are you trying to strip off weapons, you're also trying to decloak people here, so you just kind of gotta spray and pray and hopefully hit something here. Not to mention, this is just gonna make this thing absolutely dog crap in medium to long range fights here. So imagine anyone with like an Aspect or a Helios or anything that can actually snipe. It is going to be a pain here. But we'll have to see here. I can't imagine it's going to dramatically reduce its effectiveness here, but it's going to hurt. Next, Phoenix here. They just reduced the weight here to increase its popularity here. That's not going to help here. If you want to increase its popularity here, you can try to increase the HP of the actual projectile itself, because currently it just falls off with the lightest touch here. So if you could actually make it so that it takes like 1 or 2 shots here to actually shoot it off here, you might make it a bit more effective here. Or you might just change the mechanism in which it actually fires here, but who knows. Capcan here, they reduced the capture time here by 3 seconds here, which is actually still kind of nice here. I imagine for a lot of people who don't have very coordinated teammates, this is going to become a blessing. But at the same time too, this is still a 7-second capture here, which is still more than enough to actually do your dirty deeds to somebody if they actually get captured here. So I can't imagine it being terribly off here, but it's definitely very effective, especially for anyone who is on a cannon build here. This will be a godsend. Next, for big rams here, they just essentially increase the power score here and reduce the tonnage here, because it was just a bit too effective here at lower power scores, which kind of makes sense. It was definitely higher up there in its usefulness here, especially considering that its durability and how much it actually lifts you off the ground is incredibly effective, while also still maintaining the effect that it's a wheel here, which is still just stupidly useful for a lot of people. I doubt this is going to change much here, but let's see what actually happens here. Small track here, they just increased the turning radius here, just because for whatever reason small track ramming builds have become popular again here, so this is just going to help with that. The thing is though, small track ramming builds, I can't imagine it being terribly common here. Even when I was doing a lot of PvP, I still very rarely saw these things, because small track ramming builds, they kind of have this nasty habit where if they get just a tad bit knocked off balance here, they just flip around like a spin dial. Like you lift up like their one left side here and they just up in the air doing random twists and twirls here, looking like a goddamn ballerina. But alright, cool. Small tracks. A little bit fatter at turning. Oh no. Now the call here. Strangely, out of all things to nerf the call, this feels like more like a console nerf than anything, because, I mean, every time I've played a game with someone using the call here, I'm never thinking to myself, oh no, someone's using the call, please someone help me, I'm quivering in my boots. I mean, I'm more scared of someone using the Wolverine here, because clearly they were snorting lines of dried up Red Bull at this point. But no, the call. But apparently it was just way too maneuverable and way too fast, and And to be fair though, the only thing they did here is they reduced it from 50% down to 35% here. So effectively you have to have 3 drones instead of 2 drones to get the full effect of the perk. Not to mention here, that doesn't really do a whole bunch here, because still the major downside of the coal cabin is that you have to use, well, drones. And drones. Just unfortunate thing about drones is that they, how to put this lightly, they suck. Now, of course, if you're on console or if you're a cannon build or anything like that, then they can become kind of a pain in the ass here. But if you're anyone that uses a machine gun or any rapid-firing weapon with a decent radius here, these things are not even remotely an issue. The only time they ever become an issue is during like very intense group fights here, but because of group fights and the way that it actually works here with the actual targeting and firing systems here, they're not even that powerful to begin with because of the constant re-aiming. But, alright, cool. What we got next? We got the Kaiju here. The damage is planned to be increased by 8% here. I mean, which is kind of fine here. For one, I've never really seen too many people use the Kaiju in really high quantities here. The only thing special about it is that it's incredibly good at stripping off weapons incredibly effectively. Like, if you're on a hover build and you manage to get a nice shot off on someone's weapons there, you can pretty much instantaneously strip them in one good volley. Like, I've had people strip off 2 of my whatchamacallits here, my Caucasus, and one good volley of the Kaiju here. So this is definitely going to be way more beneficial to those people who would like stripping off weapons here. But we'll have to see how the actual effectiveness here. I guarantee you, though, it's still not going to be very popular in Clan Wars. Next thing here, we got the Nova cabin. All they've literally done here is they reduced the max speed by 5 kilometers an hour from 80 to 75. Apparently this is supposed to make it more in line. I'm not quite sure how much it's going to help here. Because the thing is, what's the big interesting thing about the Nova cabin is its shield perk here, and the fact that it can be paired with hovers very effectively to make a very excellent peeking and poking build. And the thing is, the maximum speed in the hovers is like somewhere in the 70-75 range here, so for a lot of people, this will not even feel different. The only way that you can make the Nova cabin less overpowered in that regard is if you're using something like a power reduction or an acceleration reduction, something like that that can actually make it a bit more sluggish here and a bit more less poke friendly. But okay, cool to see, why not? Next here we got the Beholder here, which is that one I think that goes invisible here, and now they just reduced the maximum speed here by again 5 kilometers an hour here, which is, it's just such a small amount of speed. It's less than 10% at this point in time. So okay, cool. Not really going to be a huge reduction for a lot of people. Not going to be like, oh my god, I am completely sluggish now. Like, even if that's the case, you can slap on a cheetah engine on there and go an extra 20% faster. There you go, all solved. Next thing here, we got the Tesla emitter, Spark 3, and Flash 1. Now, essentially what happens here is that you can't really stack these two. Previously, you used to be able to stack the Flash and the Spark, since for whatever reason, the slowness perks on them would stack together. So someone could actually effectively be slowed close to 100%. While on both of these things here, basically bringing you to a complete standstill. And if you had a Harvester there or any sort of flame weapon here, yeah, you know where this went. So it's good they've actually managed to patch out that issue here, which is kind of interesting, the fact that with weapons starting to overlap their buffs and their perks more and more often, I actually wonder if they're going to have to start doing some sort of like standardization here, or actually buff tracker here, to actually keep track of all these various issues here. But I guess we'll have to see how that turns out. But that is the end of the updates here. What do you guys think about the brand new Steel Championship update? Yay, nay? Guys happy about it? Guys sad about it? I don't know. Let me know down below. And I guess I want to thank you all for being here. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.